Hey, how's it going?
Hey Casey, how are you?
Hey, good, good. Sorry, I was about 5 minutes late. Our last interview went on a little long, and I had trouble getting the email link to work for the Zoom meeting, so
Yeah,
got to work now.
it's okay.
So
How is
sorry about
everything?
that.
It's all good.
How are you doing?
Everything is good. It's fucking raining outside. It's been a
Oh
miserable
yeah,
day, so it's fine with me. I don't mind. I like being at home when it's raining outside.
yeah, right. Perfect weather to be at home.
And you're in Texas?
Yep, I am here in the big old Lone Star State, Texas, and yeah, it's not raining here, but it looks like it kind of might. So it rained yesterday, so that I mean, I'll take that over the Texas heat because like this summer was brutal.
Yeah. It was the same here in Portugal, actually. We had like a great summer, like very warm, but it was very long, which isn't quite normal. Only in the last week and a half, we had some rain finally. So it's,
Yeah, same here. Wow, yeah, same exact thing here. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fun.
it's crazy. And, let's talk about Shatter and Fall. When did you guys start working on the songs for the album?
So yeah, I started working on the songs for Shatter and Fall pretty much immediately after the release or after the final touches were put on Death of the Cosmic a few years ago. And actually, there were several ideas that I actually wrote alongside those songs on the EP that I only finished a couple years later. Uh, so I had like a couple like some of those songs would be like, for instance, Spirit and Matter was one that like I wrote a lot for during the writing of Death of the Cosmic. Slowly Like Collides is another one that was sort of written alongside some of the Death of the Cosmic material. Um, and honestly, like there's a little bit of old and new on the album as far as that goes. Like there are songs from back then, and there are songs that are honestly we just wrote barely before the recording of the drums for the album, like back in 2022. So there's like some of it was like right at the edge, and some of it was like older stuff that I had finished somewhere in between. And so yeah, it was a long process, but yeah, like I said, a little bit old and new there.
Yeah. Do you keep a lot of riffs, ideas from, in a hard drive and you go look at them, after a year or two or three or whatever? Do you keep those ideas, or when you're writing, if you think the idea is not good, you just trash it?
Yeah, there's actually that's funny because like there's actually I tell people like it's true too. It's like 80 to 90% of the stuff that I write just ends up not getting used. And it ends up like in a project file on my computer. I might think, oh, this is not good enough. I mean, I'm really particular about what stuff goes and turns into an actual song for the band.
Yeah.
There are a ton of songs that like I've finished and made into legit full songs based on just letting the idea sit, and then a couple of years later being like, oh, that idea that I didn't think was good enough or I didn't really know how to work with, I'm a little better at this now. I can work with that now. I know what to do with this. And honestly, yeah, some of my favorite songs that I've written have been done like that. And so yeah, that's absolutely a good question. And there's a lot of there's riffs that I have been messing with for the album Shatter and Fall that I had just kind of put aside and like didn't mess with and never turned into real songs. Probably end up looking at some of those for the very next album that we end up writing. So, we'll see. Some of that stuff might end up on the next one.
Yeah. Sometimes it's, I find that with some stuff in life, when you're working a lot on some stuff, you find that sometimes they're not good enough. But after a while, you realize it's actually good. I was just probably the mind was just, not in
Yeah, I
the
mean,
place.
absolutely. And we are our own worst critics, right? Especially as musicians, it's really good to be a perfectionist, I think. But at the end of the day, like it can also be limiting because there's probably ideas I've thrown out and stuff. Sometimes I'll show the guys things and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know about this. And I'm like, oh, what? We're not going to use that. We're not going to use that and make that into a song. What the fuck? Like, why aren't we doing that? It's like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, and then, like I said, yeah, years later, I'll be like, hey, it really wasn't a bad idea. I just didn't know what I was doing with it at the time. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's the mind works in crazy ways, a
It
lot of
really
the times. And when you're writing, I ask this a lot to bands because um, it's always interesting to know what their reaction is. When you're working too long in an idea or in a song, do you really get like fed up? You say like, fuck this shit. The initial idea was good enough. I'm going to go that route instead. Does that happen with you sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. Yeah. Um, there's sometimes it's funny. A lot of the times I'll be noodling on guitar. I'll maybe record a part on guitar, and then I'll just kind of let the playhead just kind of keep going, and I'll like maybe record a little bit of a tail end on it, what might happen next, and then just kind of okay, and then end it, and then I'll end up for like maybe weeks or months even chasing like what thing should I have come after this? What needs to come after this section, and eventually sometimes it happens to where I'm just like I've heard it with the little tail end thing that I just did, just noodling around after, like, screw it, let's just go back, let's do that, and it ends up being perfect. The thing like that I was just improvising there right after I recorded the guitar part,
Yeah.
ends up being the very next section, ends up being the most fitting thing for the song, very very next thing. It's weird how you turn off your brain sometimes and stuff just comes out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. And how long did it take for the whole process to be complete? You talked about, after the EP and stuff, you always like collecting those ideas. But, to get everything finished, how long did it really take for Shatter and Fall?
That's a good question. So I suppose, yeah, since we started on the ideas, or I guess, yeah, that was some of the initial ideas were started like, God, like as early as 2019, but really we didn't really dive deep into the songwriting until the next year in 2020 after the release of the EP. It was really tough to start on the next album after not we didn't have any feedback on the EP. It was kind of hard to know where to go, what direction to go in, and so that was a little bit limiting. Um, Also, 2020 just wasn't the most inspirational year as far as it was very stressful. It was just like, our EP that we had just written and recorded and done a music video for, it was in limbo. And then the music industry as a whole was kind of in limbo. And then like our record deal was not fully inked yet. And so it's just everything was just kind of up in the air. And I remember just being like, this is just stressful. I don't even, so I'm not sure how much writing I got done that year, but really after that, that was when it took off. Once the songwriting was done, 2022, last year, we started recording drums in like February or so, February, March. We started recording drums, I believe. And from then, I I went back in and used those drum parts to record guitars and all the other stuff. And then we really were it was a situation where we had to prep for our tour, and we just didn't have the time to really like dedicate to getting it completed within there was like some months in there between doing our first tour and first European tour. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. And so we had a lot of planning and researching and stuff had to go into it. So a lot of hours were spent just doing that and focusing on that. So instead of rushing the album and finishing it real quick, we decided, no, we're just going to tour for the EP that we never got to tour for in the first place. So why not? So let's just tour for that. And that was what we did last year. And then we came back from the tour, and then it was a straight shot to the finish line, recording vocals and mixing and mastering at the beginning part of this year. And so it was a multiple year process, but there were reasons for that. I think there were some hiccups along the way, but to say the least. But hopefully the next one goes smoother. That's always the hope. I think it will, because we've got more experience under our belts now. But yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned not getting the feedback from the EP. Is that frustrating as a musician? Do you question your life, or, did we decide, I imagine if you put like music out and no one says that goddamn thing, you probably think like, okay, is this really that bad?
Oh, I've been there. Yeah. I mean, fortunately, it was more of a case of like just from it being in limbo. I mean, like in limbo, like not getting, like no one could review the thing because it hadn't been put out yet at all. And so it was just like, oh, like we're sitting on this material that we think is really cool and really great. It was difficult to move on to like, let's write the next thing. It was difficult to kind of get your head like, okay, to that next chapter, because it's like we haven't even put out this thing that we just did, you know? It was just like, like what can we do here? You know, like what am I supposed to do? What direction am I supposed to move in with the next album? Unfortunately, we did figure out, you know, where we needed to go, and there were a lot of, you know, good ideas that, and it didn't end up being an issue, but that was more of a mental thing than anything. You know, and it is very frustrating. Honestly, one of the most frustrating things is sitting on material that like you really are passionate about, and then you get sick of it before it even comes out. You know, you get sick of working on it, get sick of hearing it. You know, one of these days I'd love to put out an album where like I'm not sick of the songs yet. By the time it gets, I've already heard these songs 1,000 times that we're releasing, and it's just funny to me. You know, but they say if you're sick of the songs, then that's when they're done, right?
Yeah.
Once you're tired of hearing them, you've heard them enough. Okay, now you're done with the album.
Yeah, but the industry, the way it is these days, it needs like a lot of time to put an album out. You know, we're talking about like 6 to 9 months, a lot of the time to put a record out, which for a musician must be the most frustrating thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is one of the most frustrating things too. Yeah. All you want to do is just, you know, get this thing out and shout it from the rooftops. You know, whenever you get it done, you're very proud of it and you care a lot about it. And then, you know, I mean, yeah, like over time, your excitement wanes about about the material because you've been listening to it and scrutinizing it, going over with a fine tooth comb. You know, I will say the one thing that is exciting, that kind of reinvigorates that excitement, is doing the music videos and the visual stuff with it. That kind of like gets the juices flowing again. You're kind of like, all right, yeah, psyched about this again. You know, like kind of we're working on something again with this. You know, but yeah, that is one of the most frustrating things is the run up time from when you deliver the album to when it actually gets released. You know, it's like that 6 to 9 month period.
Yeah.
Like we don't get to do anything, you don't get to say anything or show anyone anything, maybe except your closest friends, you know, and just you have to sit there and wait.
And, you know, I can imagine, you know, I know a lot of bands and I see them, you know, sitting on songs, not being able to play those songs live. And, you know, I cannot imagine how, you know, I don't know. You know, my mind, you know, I have like some kind of OCD thing with a lot of things. And, you know, if I was in a band, that would be really bad for me because I would want to play those songs. They are done. They've been recorded. You know, I want to play them live and wait like 9 months. It's like asking not to play live shows just to play the same songs over and over again. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's like a kid on Christmas morning. It's like you just not being able to open the presents. You know what I mean? It's just like it's very the anticipation of when do we get to do this? You know, when do we get to make something like, you know, public here? You know, when do we get to show people this stuff? You know, and so that is frustrating. It's like, especially for us having that EP out for so long, it was just we had new songs, you know, to choose from, new songs in our repertoire, and we just kept having to play old songs, and that's very frustrating. It was like, oh, more old songs again. Okay, old songs again. Not that our old songs, we don't like our old songs. We still got songs we love playing, and that's one of the reasons we re-recorded 2 of our songs from the first demo that I ever put out, was because we like playing them live. But you know, yeah, it's like, God, you want to show people the best version of the band, which is usually the most recent version of the band, like the most updated, you know. Like, yeah, this is because it's funny. Public perception usually falls in line with. I find this to be the case. Is like, you know, you usually are perceived as your most recent like material. Like that's usually how you perceive. You're touring for that stuff, and so if you put out an album, like that's kind of how people perceive your band. It's based off of that most recent release, and so it's like if you have that material written, touring for the old stuff still very.
Yeah.
you know?
And at the end of the day, I mean, you have an idea that the songs that you've written and recorded are good. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. But to play those songs live, it's when you realize if they're really good and if they really work in a live environment. And, you need that to, to know which songs are going to work and which are not. And if you don't do that, what's the point?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges for our upcoming tour is that we really haven't had. This is like our first time playing these songs, some of these songs in front of people, and hopefully they enjoy them. We did play a show over here, and we played a couple of the new songs, and people really fucking loved them. So I think that we got some winners. We'll definitely be playing all the singles from the new album, and those have gotten some good feedback so far. So fingers crossed, they work for the live tour in Europe. So,
And, on this record, you got some guests. Is it easy to, invite people, like Vincent Jackson Jones or Thomas from Wolfart? Is it easy to contact them and say, I have this idea. Would you want to do it? What if they don't like the idea and they say,
yeah. Yeah, well, that's always that's funny. I mean, I haven't run into that problem yet, but it's something that you always wonder about, right? I think it really depends on how well you know these guys. Like for instance, we knew like Jake, and we know Jake very well. We know Tomas very well. We had just toured with Tomas. We've been in touch with him for years. We actually wanted Tomas on our previous EP, but just the scheduling didn't work out at the time, and so stars aligned this time around, and it worked out perfectly. Jake from Ether Realm, we've known him for years as well. It was easy to work with these guys because we knew them, But for instance, like other vocalists, other artists that we might want to work with, it might not be the same process. They might not like it. They might never get back to me, and that's just like, for instance, Tomas, like his vocals on A Tide on Turning, like. He changed up a couple things like with the vocal rhythm, like the inflection and stuff like that, and it ended up working perfectly, but there might be some other guys who like, I don't know, there might be people, like out there, like maybe next time I try to get a guest vocalist, it might be like, yeah, I'm not feeling this song. I was like, damn it, like that would suck. That would definitely suck. I haven't run into that yet, but I could see that happening at some point.
If that happens, then you question if the song is really that good.
Yeah. And then I'm like, damn, like, is this album material or, fuck, what do I do? No, I haven't had that happen yet. I would hope that doesn't happen, but we do want to do more guest vocals in the future, by the way. So hopefully we can do some more on the next album. I really enjoy it. It adds a different, like, I always tell people it adds like a different kind of DNA, like a little bit different of a fingerprint, a little bit different, like, a different vibe, and it's good to contrast and break up like the monotony of like having one person's vocals on the album,
Yeah.
So I always get excited about that.
Yeah.
And what's better than sharing a track with like one of your favorite vocalists? You know what I mean? I mean, that's just like everyone wants to do that. It's awesome.
That's the cherry on top of the cake, as they say.
Yeah,
I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And one of the things I don't know, maybe it's just my taste is changing, but I sense there is some sort of revival of death metal in a way, or at least the albums that are coming out, they're really, really good. Cannibal Corpse, latest record, Obituary, Cryptopsy, just these three. It's showing that, I remember listening to Morbid Angel when they started Death. And, I didn't think it could get any better than that back then. And now I see some of these bands still putting out great records. What do you think it's the secret for this quality in death metal? Because I didn't think it was a genre that was supposed to last this long.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, clearly there's something about it that like taps into the human experience, like because like there's a reason it stuck around, right? I mean, like you said, like if you thought it was short-lived, I mean, like yeah, it had more staying power, I suppose, than one would have thought, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's a secret to it other than like really like I don't know, like there's a lot of amazing music out there. There's a lot of things like nowadays, and I don't know that this is it, but the fact that like the internet allows so many bands to be discovered, so many like people like you're gonna I feel like you're more likely to find the gems out there. There's more likely going to be like there's just more material being put out. People can self-produce now, you know what I mean? People can pull from more influences than ever. They're not limited to what's at the record store. They can listen to obscure band X, Y, or Z, you know what I mean? And they can pull influence from those guys and do their own thing with it. And I really think that like that has to do with a scale thing. I think there's just so much more music and so much more stuff out there that like, yeah, I think we're bound to have like just more gems amongst all those things. It's a very saturated, like metal is very saturated today. Like there's so many bands, it's crazy.
And, there's a lot of good bands actually, and for me, it's hard to keep track on everything that's released. And sometimes I just have to give it a miss because I don't have the time. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sometimes you get hooked when you discover like a new band, you just get hooked and, you listen to it until you've wasted all your energy or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing better than that feeling though, finding a new band that you really vibe with and like you get hooked, you're like, damn, and I check out the next album, you're like, damn. You check out some of this stuff, like, woo, like, okay, the full scope of everything they did is great. Yeah, that's like it's like you said though, it can be hard to keep up with album releases, like I find myself I've fallen way behind a lot of the bands that I really enjoy. Like people say, did you hear their new album? I'm like, I haven't. Like I haven't been able to. I've been busy. I forgot. I'm focused on this or that. And honestly, yeah, it's like a lot of the time I'm so focused on what I'm doing with the music that I'm writing and making sure that it's up to par that I get like very much absorbed in that. And I have like times where like I really don't hear anything and I really don't listen to music, and then like I'll be okay, like for instance, right now is kind of a period of time where like I'm kind of soaking some stuff up. Like I'm listening to other music, and if there's anything he wants to send me, then send it to me. I'm listening because I'm not actively like I'm not in the thick of like the very like pivotal points in songwriting and stuff like that. Like it's sort of the beginnings of writing the next album. You know.
And are you the kind of musician that you tend not to listen to the genre that you play? Not to get influenced or to steal something inadvertently or something?
100%, man. 100%. Yeah, I try to avoid like I try not to like dirty up my palette when I'm really in that songwriting mode where I'm really trying to like it's a good thing and a bad thing, like I don't want to like I've learned that like I probably do a little too much. Like I probably like really stay a little too focused and like, I don't want to hear this until I'm done writing this song. I don't want to mess with, because you're always afraid that you're going to like steal something or, but some part of it is just like, also just like you'll discover something new or you'll hear something that's so great and you go look at your own stuff and you're like, God, my stuff sucks. Like it does. This other stuff is way better than what you get discouraged, and it's like you lose some of that momentum if you ever come. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but like sometimes you'll hear something really great, and you're just like, God damn, and you're just like, okay, I got to go back to the drawing board, and then you kind of get a little bit of, like I said, loss of momentum, and so you don't want that to happen. That can be discouraging, and so sometimes I try to make sure that like. Yeah, I'm only listening to other stuff, or I'm not listening to stuff within the genre too much, or like I only listen to it if I really know I'm not gonna, I mean that stuff. But like, I think that's honestly some of that is a bad habit too. Some of that's a mental thing, just a bad habit, probably for me at least.
I remember when I used to play guitar back in the day. I remember because I worked in the radio for many, many years, and one of the things for me was because the radio was more like pop oriented. Pop rock and some dance shit. And I remember that if I listened to a lot of pop music, when I would get home and get the guitar, I probably would go more into like a Slayer, trash kind of wanting vibe to play that kind of music. And the other way was if I listened to like a Slayer, Morbid Angel, or something like that, I would end up going to an acoustic route, playing the guitar.
Yeah.
It was just fucking weird.
Yeah, you kind of like you get a little fatigued on the one thing, and then you want to go to the other, and you get fatigued on that thing, and you just kind of want to, like, yeah, I get that for sure, man. That's funny.
It's the brain works like in very strange ways, at least mine.
So doesn't it? Yeah. That's something that I always like. I really wish, like, I mean, it's kind of funny because, like, for me, like, man, I mean, the two can be like incorporated in at least the genre that I play. Like, sometimes, I mean, I tell people, like, sometimes like the beginning of a song, like for writing for me, it doesn't even start with distorted guitar. Sometimes it'll start with just like the string pads or like the keyboard stuff, and then some clean guitar, like something that's, maybe it doesn't even sound like metal at that point, but then I end up finding a way to turn it into that. But yeah, no, that's interesting what you were saying.
It's kind of weird. And, one of the things about the band name, I did a search, I Google it like everybody does it these days.
Yeah.
And, the word Hinayana was like a Buddhist word for small path.
Yeah.
Was that's where you got the name from for the band?
Yeah, that's where I got the name from the band. I really like, honestly, I like the Sanskrit thing, and I liked the context of how it was used in Buddhism. But like, I'm not a Buddhist. I'm a spiritual person. You know what I mean? I thought it was a cool concept back in the day. I've been asked so many times about the band name and like the pronunciation of the band name that if I could probably go back in time, I might like name it something different, or might name it something in English or whatever. Not Sanskrit. But my 18-year-old self was just like, thought it was the coolest thing or whatever at the time. So like I said before, like to other people, like I didn't really think that the project was going to take off a whole lot. So this was kind of just like a little project of mine, whatever, I just I didn't center my whole world around it. Basically, I was kind of just like, okay, I'm going to put this thing out, who knows what the next thing I'm going to do is. But then, yeah, it ended up being a much bigger thing than I thought it would be. So, I mean, I do still think the band name is cool. I still think that, like, I like the Sanskrit meaning, and I think that I think it's cool. It kind of plays into some of my ideas spiritually and stuff like that. And so I still think that we tie in with it, but we don't make our identity center around it. If that makes sense. Yeah, there's a band called Europe. I mean,
And I actually talked with Joey a couple of weeks ago from Europe. So
yeah, I mean, there's bands named all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, like there's a band called ISIS now, for God's sake. Like, oh, that's a poor, like those guys, like they had to, like right when that whole thing was going on, they had to like change their Facebook thing and say ISIS the band. It's like, so yeah, no, it's an interesting thing that happens with band names sometimes.
And at least in the logo, it's clear and we can read it. Unlike those black metal bands that, I had the funniest meme. It's that forest thing where there's a lot of branches.
Yeah, it's like a bundle of sticks, a bundle of twigs. And it's like, oh, what's that black metal band? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like there's like one with like the leather couch that's like cracking and like it's like, what's that band name?
For me, as long as I can read the name of the band, that's the most important thing, because when I see festivals, when they announce the bands and they have those fucking crazy unreadable logos, I have a difficult time, what the fuck is this band? How am I supposed to have an interest in you if I cannot read your name?
Yeah. It's almost like they really should just like put the little, I've seen it done where they put the little like, they put the actual like legible like thing underneath it. Yeah. But yeah, like, no, I agree. I've seen flyers where I'm like, who is this? What is this? I can't tell who the headliner is and what that band name is. Like, and I go try to figure it out. And I'm like, God, I'm losing my mind trying to figure out what does it say?
And at the end of the day, you're just like, screw this. I don't want to see you guys,
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I think it's also a genre thing. I mean, it's a super popular thing in black. I mean, I guess in the newer kind of death metal and slam stuff. They really like those unlegible, like not non-legible logos. And black metal, that was kind of a thing sometimes, but maybe not as much. You know, the over stylized stuff. I think the kind of metal that we play is like is sort of like I don't know. Yeah, it's melodic and sort of mid-paced a lot of the time. We do some faster stuff, some slower stuff, but it's really like, you know, going with the whole theme of the band, like having a super spiky and over stylized crazy logo is probably just not it doesn't fit with us, you know what I mean? It doesn't fit with what we do.
And you know, the album coming out soon. What are, you know, the plans for next year? Try to tour as much as possible, do some of the summer festivals as well. What are the plans?
That's the goal. I mean, basically, you said it. Like, we have a new booking agent that we have partnered with this year, and for North America, we're about to do our second European tour we've never toured the United States, never toured North America, which is cool, but it's also ridiculous at the same time. You know, it means no one's taking a chance on us because I've knocked on as many doors as I can. I've really I've been trying. So hopefully crossing our fingers that we get on a North American tour. That's a good big tour next year, and one or two. I mean, we'd love to do it. Hell, we'd love to do it twice if we could. I would love to go to Europe to play festivals. You know, we got to cross our fingers and make some connections for that. And, you know, we want to get on a booking agency out in Europe. So that's another goal right there. But yeah, just do as much live shows as we can, play as much, and honestly, finish as much stuff for the new album that we would be coming out with after this one. And then for Shatter and Fall, really, like, you'll probably see more. We're going to do some more videos. We're going to do some more promotional stuff for it. Yeah, those are kind of some of our plans for next year.
All right, cool. Casey, thank you very much for your time. All the best. And well, hopefully we'll see you guys here in Portugal soon. So we
hope so. We hope on the next tour that we do, that's on the bucket list. Portugal would be, you know, we had fun with the Moonspell guys, and so we'd love to go out there and see Portugal. Yeah, hopefully next European tour. Cross our fingers we can do some of that sometime again soon too. So yeah, Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, and you know, hope to see you next year. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Bye.